Hello again, I am Fluff back in War Thunder, where in the full realism battles it is currently England versus Germany. So I thought I would take the opportunity to put some of my Spitfires in the sky, being as I haven't actually flown them in full realism battles, only in arcade, and I figure that the prohibitive repair costs won't be too bad, considering that I'm only flying one of these things at a time. I can leave them in my hangar to repair overnight or whatever. I'm not really sure what it is, but I myself have never equated the Spitfires with having a overwhelming earning potential. Although, to be fair, I'd mostly been playing them as I initially started the game, so there's a certain amount of inexperience in the learning curve there. Well, Spitfires in FRB have been quite interesting for me. I've certainly noticed that they're not as manoeuvrable as the Japanese. They can't pull more extreme manoeuvres and sustain them for as long, but they've still got a decent ability to do so. On the other hand, this means they're not as sluggish as the American carrier fighters and the 109s can be when you're trying to, work in the horizontal. If you take the American and German more armoured energy fighters, they boom and zoom very well on one side, and the Japanese manoeuvring like maniacs on the other, the Spitfires are sort of in the middle there a little bit. And I suppose that does kind of mean that they are likely to lose out. Jack of all trades means you're master of none, but it's not entirely bad. To put it bluntly, in the hands of a player who knows what he's doing, that Spitfire can be absolutely vicious in more or less any incarnation. What stuck out for me in particular is that the Spitfires tend to be quite unforgiving. I contrast this with, say, the American carrier planes like a Wildcat or a Hellcat, in that these things they've got a lot of power, a lot of grunt. They're not likely to just suddenly go into a spin and drop out of the sky if you do a slightly too sharp manoeuvre. The sort of closest you're going to get to experiencing a plane that does that in that line is when you're flying like a P-40 a little bit too slow, and then you apply a sharp control input and you promptly do a barrel roll. By comparison, and I would suggest this is probably because of the nature of where the Spitfires excel, you're generally essentially stall fighting. You're right on the edge to get the maximum amount of performance out of your Spit, but the downside to that is you're right on the edge, and a single mistake is going to put you straight into a spin. You're going to lose control. You're likely to at the very least stall, and at the worst go into a complete spin. I've done that several times now. I suppose the big thing to ask is, what does a Spitfire have going for it? Why would I fly one? Now, there's a few things that occur to me. One's the armament. Beyond the Spitfire Mark I, you're looking at having a pair of Hispano 20mm cannons, which are quite nice. They are mounted on the wings, obviously, so convergence is an issue, but you've got two, so it's a case of more DACA. And you've generally got 4 7.7mm machine guns, which, although they're not going to go through armour anytime soon, will rip up exposed control surfaces and stuff like there's no tomorrow. And again, being 4 of them firing at a relatively high rate of fire, it's again more DACA. You start getting up to like the Mark 16 and you've got a pair of 50 cals and a pair of Hispanos, which is a pretty fearsome combination. Or say the 5C, and that's 4 Hispano cannons, so 4 20mm all firing at once. Where firepower is concerned, you're definitely rocking a decent combo with these planes for the most part. Survivability is decent enough. You get tagged once or twice and you're not necessarily completely out of the game. It's debatable, depending on where you're hit, as to whether you'll actually want to keep fighting or try and limp home, but the fact that you can limp home is nice compared to your average Japanese plane where you get grazed by a bullet and that's pretty much GG. I hope your parachute works. I think the big thing with the Spitfire is versatility. From the highest operating altitude to the right on the deck, you can't boom and zoom as well as say a 109F could, but you can still do it. You have a whole range of options available to you. You might not be as fast as a boom and zoom plane, but you can still go pretty fast. So there's a bit of a compromise there in being able to excel a little bit more in other areas. You obviously aren't as good in when it comes to say raw speed and being able to just jump on the target like that, use energy to your advantage in that way. However, if an enemy latches onto your tail, you are more than able to manoeuvre, and generally far better than they can, and at lower speeds. So while your opponent is attempting to turn inside of you and get you in his gun sights, going all over the place, slowing down steadily over time to the point where he ends up essentially flying a brick for all of the responsiveness it has, you in your Spitfire still have the ability to keep manoeuvring and get round on that guy and bring him down. Obviously that's sort of far more tenable in a sim environment than necessarily in a real life one where you're going to be terrified for your life, but you know, that's the crucial difference, and there's not much you can do about that. You're not going to sit there with a gun to someone's head while they play, right? So from what I'm seeing, your Spitfires offer a versatile option as regards fighter planes. They tend not to be one-trick ponies, so they suffer a little bit in terms of not being able to excel at that one thing that they do. However, it also means that they have more cards to play when that option turns out to have been denied. They tend to be a bit challenging, and you have to pay attention to what's going on around you and with your plane, otherwise you will get a fairly unpleasant surprise as you lose control, and if you don't have sufficient altitude, that could very well be fatal. Fortunately, this being a game, that doesn't mean it's goodbye you. Beyond that, in the hands of the smart aces, evidently these things have potential to be extreme threats to anything else on the battlefield, or at least the stuff they're in that has wings. That'll be all from me for now though, as I head off to get my arse handed to me yet again, so thank you for watching and take care.